That's good.
Hey everybody, Brian.
Katie.
Tim.
And right now, we're going to be talking about horror franchises. Now, we've got a list of about 25. There's a couple that we left off, some that we probably left off unintentionally. And if so, please let us know in the comments which ones you would have liked to have seen. Some of these, we're going to list the name and then we'll all just give our thoughts. However brief or long, we'll just go with it. So, getting us started, the very first one, and this one's kind of near and dear to my heart, the Puppet Master films from Full Moon Pictures. You guys... Did you see any of them growing up?
My only familiarity with them is Movie Bob from The Escapist recently did a retrospective where he kind of covered all the movies.
Okay.
But I've not seen them firsthand.
Me too.
Yeah, so the Puppet Master movies, it's a group of puppets, and they're pretty creepy. They all have unique personalities. And as the series went on, there's been, 9 or 10 and some spin-offs and stuff. They add more and more puppets to the mix. But those are really cool films. At least go back and try to catch the first 2 or 3. I think you might like it. The way that they animate the little puppets running around and killing people. I always liked Pinhead. He was like the muscle of the team, but he had a really tiny little pea-sized head. Blade is another guy. He had blades and a gray trench coat and stuff. So Puppet Master, I do recommend checking that one out. Here's one, Tim, that I have not seen, and when this video airs, I probably will have seen all 4 of them. I'm trying to get my hands on them right now. Pumpkinhead.
I've only seen the first one, loved the first one. It was kind of a Jim Henson vehicle, so the puppetry is amazing. Lance Henriksen's in it, he's always amazing.
So the first 2 were done around the same time in the 90s or 80s? 90s? Early 90s.
I believe in the early 90s.
And the 2 sequels were both done around mid-2000s via Sci-Fi Channel. I guess they are distributed on a DVD now, but they were originally airing on cable.
Yeah. Lance Henriksen, I believe, is in all 4 of them, which is problematic. We'll just leave it at that. Avoid spoilers.
Here's one, Wishmaster.
I saw the first one of that
Which
movie.
was a Wes Craven vehicle, I think? Maybe as a producer or something. I don't know if he directed that.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the guy's voice. I thought it was very captivating. As you wish, Yeah.
And my only connection to Wishmaster is my mom, when I was young, visited New York City with some of her relatives, and she brought back my first and I think only ever bootleg video. So it was like a photocopied scanned box, but it was still out in theaters at the time. So I was like, okay, and I popped it in, and it was literally somebody coughing and filming it, with the camcorder in it. So it was terrible quality, and even as a kid, I'm like, oh, this kind of sucks. But
I've got a 2-disc set. I got really cheap one day. It took me like 5 years to finally watch the first one. Maybe in another 5 years I'll watch the second one. We'll see.
Okay. Katie, Wishmaster, ever see it?
I may have, but it's
kind of an under the radar entry into this category. I think as we continue on, we're gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger. Up next, Candyman.
Another Clive Barker creation. You'll notice this trend. Only seen the first one in it, but I loved it. It's Tony Todd as the Candyman, and he's excellent in the role, and Virginia Madsen plays the main... I can't remember if she's a reporter type or whatever. I think she is. I think she's trying to research the urban myth of the Candyman for a story. Some parts of the plot lost me, like I wasn't completely sure why she was able to go into the Candyman world and retrieve somebody and bring them back out again. I was fuzzy on some of that stuff.
Is this the one where the kid says Candyman 5 times in the mirror, or am I completely off?
That is the same one. But the other gimmick of the Candyman is that in order to be his victim, you have to want to be, at least on a subconscious level. So
it's titillating.
Yeah, it's one of those things, because when Candyman will come up to her and say, be my victim. That's what he's asking her, because he knows that deep down she's a reporter, because she's a little bit vain. She wants to be the topic of conversation, and eventually she does.
She wants to be the headline.
Spoilers.
Well, my experience with Candyman, how I know about it, and I may have seen the movie again because my dad would let us watch whatever when we were in diapers. Be like, hey, you want to watch Texas Massacre? Sure. But South Park did a parody on it.
Biggie Smalls?
Biggie Smalls. So that's how I know about the Candyman. And I was like, wait a minute. So if you're Butters and you're in that mirror, I mean, just say Biggie Smalls 5 times and you never know what's going to hit you.
That's funny how parodies are sometimes your entry to it, because that was my entry to Cape Fear, was the Simpsons episode on where Sideshow Bob was doing the Robert De Niro thing.
All right, what else we got?
Candyman, I'll just say that I was very late to the party. I think I saw the original one a couple years ago, and I may have seen some of the sequels, but I'm a little foggy on that franchise. And we won't, Candyman, it brought to mind Gingerbread Man and the Lawnmower Man, but those are not part of our list.
Sounds interesting, though.
Lawnmower Man was interesting.
Yeah, I think I saw its sequel as well. Okay, here's one. Here's the next couple. I think we're kind of ramping it up pretty quickly. Leprechaun.
I love Warwick Davis from the movie Willow, and he was Wicket the Ewok. I'm ashamed to say I've never seen any of the Leprechaun movies. And I know Jennifer Aniston got her start. That was like her first
You
role.
are going to see the new one with Hornswoggle in it, though, right?
I will watch Warwick Davis first.
Oh. Sorry, Horny.
For me, around the time that the first one came out was early 90s. That's when we had access to illegal pay-per-view. And so I was able to watch it, so I would kind of follow the franchise as it grew. Around 4 or 5 when it went to Leprechaun to the Hood,
he starts rapping?
I kind of got, and then, he went back to the Hood the second time, and I remember, girls in bikinis and, people, getting high and, very crazy. And he's went to space. He's done a lot of interesting things, but they're very fun. It's that kind of fun horror.
Will Hornswoggle do justice, though, Brian?
I don't know a lot about this new one that WWE Films is producing. I'm curious to see it. I hope that it retains some. Excuse me.
Excuse you.
Having a couple bubblies. I hope it does retain some of that goofy charm because he has one-liners like Freddy Krueger, who we'll talk about much later. Up next, Tim. I know you want to start us off on Hellraiser.
One of my absolute favorites. Like I was saying before, it's another Clive Barker creation based upon the book The Hellbound Heart. What can I say? Although I can't just outright say go watch these movies. First movie is great. The second movie is awesome. It's one of those rare instances where number 2 trumps number 1. Number 3, though, is where it really...
Number 3 is Hell on Earth.
Yeah, that's where it started to lose steam. It wasn't bad yet, but that was where you could see the wheels are starting to wobble some, and then by 4, and, eventually when you're getting...
5, there's Inferno, there's Deader, there's Hell World. I don't know, I don't think I'm getting
Deader and Hell
correct.
World just skip, and same with the Hellraiser Revelations, which doesn't even include Doug Bradley in it.
Yeah, that's, I think, the 9th or 10th. That's the most recent one, and that is really, really bad. I have seen that one. And I don't know how, if you could still probably get this on Amazon and stuff. My brother has 3 through 9, just as a 2-disc little cheapy set, $9.99 or something.
They're on Netflix because me and the hubby, producer Adam, we have them on standby. So.
And I've seen kind of patches of the franchise, and this Halloween season I intend on seeing some of the ones that I missed out on. So kind of cool. These next 2 off camera, you guys said that you're not too familiar with, so I'm just going to jump by them real quick and say Phantasm. I know it does have its fans, my brother being one of them. The Tall Man, the Mausoleum, the Sphere, this silver bar with different spikes and stuff. These little Ewok-like characters. Very cool series, especially the first one has a great creepy vibe to it, really good music. And I think either sometime this year or next there is a new Phantasm movie. The first one in at least 12, maybe 15 years. The Howling is another franchise. Again, the first one is my all-time favorite werewolf movie. But I have only seen a couple of the sequels, and it just kept, the original team was not a part of any of the sequels. It just kept getting bastardized to the point of
Twilight and Teen Wolf don't do it for you for werewolves.
not Teen Wolf, not American Werewolf from London. No, that's good.
Okay.
That's good.
I'm a big Vampire Lestat fan. I'm not gonna lie. Even Queen of the Damned, the movie, as awful as it was, I still got some perverse enjoyment out of it.
This next one, Tim, I'm going to serve to you on a big silver platter. Of the 3 films, my favorite is the first. I won't say anything more about it because I really feel, this is a franchise that you like a lot. Evil Dead.
Wow, that's really difficult to pin down which is my favorite because I've definitely... Since I've seen those movies at various points in my life,
Let's go ahead and throw the remake on as the 4th in the franchise. It's part of the franchise, right?
I haven't seen it.
I've seen that
I saw that on the big screen, man.
It came out when I was doing the 2 jobs thing, and my buddies have a copy of it. I just need to borrow it from them.
You're not missing out because this time she doesn't get with the tree. It's a little different this time.
Okay,
if you remember what I'm saying.
But the tree does do
It
a
gets
little
a little
something.
something,
It gets a little something, man.
At various points in my life, though, of the original 3, I've declared each one my favorite at various points. I think the second one is the one that has the best mix of being legitimately scary and comedic. Because the more I think about it, I think Army of Darkness, it kind of left behind scary and just went straight comedic. And
that one I never did it for me. The third one. Mm-hmm. The first one I liked a lot because it was a little bit more frightening. Yeah. But definitely deserved of its spot.
Are you guys looking forward to the spin-off series that's coming up here soon?
The TV series? Yeah, no doubt. I'll DVR it.
I might watch a couple of episodes. I mean, my excitement level will be directly proportional to how involved Bruce Campbell is.
Up next, Katie, you're gonna kick this one off. Woo! Child's Play. Take it, sister.
My God, Chucky. I mean, it started off so epic, especially when it came out. I was a young kid. Me and Brian are about the same age. He's the young whippersnapper here. I mean, when Chucky was out, it was hot, man. There was like all of us kids wanted to watch it. It was like, it was scary, but it was cool. And then, like, as soon as I think the third one, it started going crazy. It started getting out there. I mean...
And then there was the Bride of Chucky, the Seed of Chucky. And then there's been, was it 2013? There's a new Chucky film, which is out. I don't know, did you guys see that new one?
No.
It's not
I don't want to. I like to keep 1 and 2 there in my heart.
It doesn't really do any... it doesn't really... It's a bit of a disservice, I would say, to the originals. You know, it just it kind of felt a little hollow.
Yeah. I mean, check out 1 and 2.
It didn't have that creepy kind of vibe of the first ones.
The only thing I want to add is I didn't realize as a young child who Brad Dourif was, and now that's Wormtongue, from Lord of the Rings or whatever. And it's like that's the voice of Chucky, and that just never hit me until recently. And I think he exists solely to creep you out because every role he's in. With those eyes.
Those great eyes, man.
Yeah.
Up next,
Daywalkers.
Saw.
Oh my God.
So the first Saw film at the time was hugely effective for what it did, and it's a case of, well, we got a deadline to meet every October. We're going to get another one out, and box office receipts were coming in. Films that are inexpensive to make, yet they're making their money back, 2, 3, 4-fold. But where does this set to you?
Let me simply say I did not catch the first one in theaters.
I
waited till...
So good.
Well, I remember my cousin and I went to the movies. We had the choice. We could either have seen Saw or The Grudge. And we picked The Grudge. And no, that was the wrong decision. I saw... When I finally got to see...
Damn.
This is the hardest movie to talk about. When I finally got to see Saw... They did so much with nothing. Because how much of this room is just people in a bathroom talking, and I love Carrie Elways, I love Danny Glover, Tobin Bell is awesome as always. Loved it. Was eagerly anticipating the second one. When I saw the second one, I hated it. I absolutely despised it, and I never watched another Saw after the second one.
I mean, guys, to me, I worked in the movie theaters like you guys did. I worked on and off for a decade. I screened it. I had no expectations coming into Saw. I'm not really a horror or thriller or whatever genre you'd place this into. But man, I just thought it was so captivating. It was so intelligent. It was something that kept you guessing and guessing and guessing. And sure, the first one probably it was never going to surpass the first one. But I thought with each and every one, hell, you even had Chester from Linkin Park in one of them. I mean, it was just captivating. It kept me going every Halloween. I think I screamed 6 out of 7 of them. I think that there were. How many is there? I think there was 7 guys.
There was 6, and then there was 3D. So I think there was 7. I could be wrong, but I think there was roughly 7.
But I mean, I screamed pretty much all of them, and to me, that is my Halloween. I'm not into gore, but with the storyline, it just kept it on point, man. I mean, if you haven't seen Saw, give it a chance. I'm telling you.
There was moments in some of the sequels that were interesting. Like there was the kind of pit of hypodermic needles in 3 or 4 that I thought was kind of a cool visual. There's some interesting, things of that nature. I remember when I saw it, I called home. My mom's like, "What movie did you see?" I saw Saw. She's like, "Are you just like, what's wrong with you now, Brian? Say what I saw Saw."
You're doing an Abbott and Costello routine with your mom.
Yeah, I was. Now
I will simply say that I was pulled into the first one because the characters were so strong. You could talk about who Dr. Gordon was, and
that's
Danny
another
Glover.
Yeah,
but once. And though it kicked me out of it so hardcore in the second movie was there's a ton of people, they're all nameless, faceless. Like I think one of the sisters from Seventh Heaven was in it, And to me, it stopped being about characters and became about blood.
When you get to 4 and 5 and 6, there's so many switches. Oh, this detective's actually in on it. There's like a lot.
So Vince Russo's writing the series.
Yes.
So even though I saw them all, around halfway through it, I had no the interior workings of who was doing what and the machinations of who was responsible. You know, oh, the main Jigsaw is dead. Oh wait, he's back. Oh, he's got a niece or something. I don't know. So that kind of, you know, maybe if you marathon watched them,
But we don't want to give it away, fans, because like we said, you gotta watch it.
And talking about that film, it immediately springboards us to our next topic, and that's Paranormal Activity. There's been 4, including the marked ones last year. I gotta say, man, I kind of like these.
Yeah, they're not
I don't know if
bad.
that's gonna put me on Front Street, but I liked the first one. Saw it in the theater. Got wrapped up in that sort of. And as I'm doing this, I'm writing down other movies.
That's all right.
But
We're here all night,
Paranormal Activity, the first one, you know, it was amazing PR. Great promotional. You need to see this film. Most terrifying film in 20 years. So I got there and saw it. The second one is the only one of the 4 that I didn't like too much. That's, you know, the baby monitor and stuff. The third one, though, the 2 brothers, or not brothers, but the 2 guys that did it, they're the ones responsible for that movie Catfish. I like what they did with the third one, and then they also came back for the 4th one, the marked one, which is set in a barrio, kind of in, you know, that one I liked as well. And I imagine there probably is going to be a 5th. It's not on the calendar year this year, so maybe not. But if so, count me on board for that.
Yeah, I'm not really into the whole genre. I saw Blair Witch, and you know, I think that's pretty much, guys, what probably kicked this genre off. I could be wrong. I mean, but I mean, Paranormal Activity. I mean,
you're talking about the found footage.
Yeah, the
cinema
found
verite
footage.
style.
I mean, would we agree that this Blair Witch is kind of what kicked this kind of craze off?
Which Blair Witch we won't. You know, there's only been 2, and the second one we're not going to count. But
No.
at least that its name got brought up in this, I think, is good because it does have kind of a landmark.
I mean, I'm not really into horror. I don't get scared easily. If I'm honest, Arachnophobia is probably the creepiest and scariest movie around. Obviously, go watch that if you love spiders. But I mean, for what it is,
Refresh my memory. Was that the one with the
Jeff
guy?
Daniels.
Okay, yeah, I did see that one. Okay.
Yeah, John
And,
Goodman.
But as for Paranormal Activity, I saw the first one. I enjoyed it. My only complaint with the movie was that it made you watch it twice. You got to watch the footage on the monitors, and you got to watch them watch this. So I mean, they made great use of their time. You know, they only had they. But I just never got around to watching the sequels. It wasn't. It wasn't. I disliked it. It was just I got busy.
It's a cash cow. It's always going to do well. I mean,
This next one, I think most purists would argue it's more in the sci-fi tip. But Katie, you suggested it, and we're going to go ahead and throw it out there. In case I think people that haven't seen it maybe will look into it, is Alien. And it's technically 3 sequels and 1 prequel, if we're going to count Prometheus.
Yeah,
which I haven't seen.
Which is great. You've got to check it out. I mean, I've
heard conflicting things. I've heard some really bad things.
I liked it. I mean, I don't know. I think
I enjoyed the visuals of Prometheus. It looked like H.R. Geiger. You know, just
let me frame this conversation with a question.
Okay.
I think this would be most beneficial. It's that age-old debate. What is the better film, Alien or Aliens?
Aliens.
Because I don't think anybody's going to say Fincher's film, which was the 3rd one.
No, that wasn't bad though.
Or the 4th one. But the first 2 are neck and neck. And a lot of people say, like you said, this is one of the few franchises where the second one's better. But I don't know, man.
I'm actually going to have to throw my vote behind the first one.
Okay.
Me too.
Like,
Me too.
That's fine. I don't mind being in the
I mean,
minority
they're
voice.
completely different kind of movies.
The second one has more of an action aspect. You have this core group of people that are going in there to kick ass. You have, you know...
And maybe that's why I like it, because that was always on the TV when I was growing up. I remember fondly we got it when it came out on VHS. My dad put it on. I just thought it was freaking awesome. I mean, when you're seeing a freaking alien rip out of someone's stomach, I mean... You know, hats off to the Aliens. I think Aliens is probably one of my favorite movies up there too. And I'm not a sci-fi geek or horror, but I mean, it's just a fun movie.
I haven't seen something burst out of a chest like that since I was, you know, trying to get into a frat house and the hazing rituals. It was terrifying. The poor kid.
The strength of Alien, and I think someone said this on one of those VH1 countdowns, is it solved the problem of the horror movie, specifically the haunted house. Why don't they just leave the haunted house? Well, in this case, the haunted house is a space station. You can't leave.
No.
And everything was so dark, and you couldn't tell what was an alien and what wasn't, because everything had that very scaly sort of look to it. So that's why I enjoyed the first one as much as I did. I love the second one as well.
The set design on that first one is immaculate. One of the best sets ever created.
Yeah.
And are we talking in the 80s here, boys? Was this late 80s? So for the
the
time,
first one was definitely 80s.
Yeah.
what it was. But definitely check it out if you haven't seen it.
We'll jump kind of quickly through the next couple. They're kind of fun franchises, at least in my opinion. One's Ghoulies.
Not
I have been
Ghoulies-
mocked to death by my friends over the fact that I haven't seen it.
So Ghoulies, as a kid, I saw the first one a lot. I have the second one at home. I think they go to an amusement park in that one, if I'm not mistaken. Critters, Critters, they're they turn into balls and roll around.
They're
and
kind of a
take over the town.
Gremlins kind of spin-off.
Sort of a.
Yep.
I know in the
All I
fourth
know-
one, the fourth one again, this seems to be a common thread. In the fourth one, which I have not seen, they go to space. The critters in space.
They always go to space on number 4,
Of
except
course they do.
except an alien, because that's where they go to Earth.
And and Friday the 13th, all the way up until number 10,
Yeah,
is next to go to space.
Eventually, every horror franchise goes to space. Though.
Cube, there was only 2 of them, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, there is a third, I think. There's Cube, Hypercube. I think there might be a third.
Might be on Netflix.
There might be a third.
There really,
Overdrive
with
or
a name
something
like
that.
Cube, there really should be a third one.
Yeah, so Cube is kind of an interesting one. It's definitely under the radar, so you may
I
not
thought
heard
the
of
first
Cube.
one was really
Definitely see
interesting.
the first
Yeah.
It's funny.
It's kind of a philosophical horror.
My
Similar to
dad's,
Saw, but not so much gore, more so up here.
Psychological.
My dad's
Sure.
a math teacher, and that he's been known to pull that out as a movie for his students to watch from time to time.
Nice. I like how he
Perplexing.
thinks.
Yeah.
This one's had, I lost count, at least 4, maybe more, Scream. Ah!
90s classic.
I
Saw the
never.
first one at the drive-in, which was a cool way to see it.
Nice.
I don't get it.
No.
And I love Wes Craven, but I really do not.
You know
get
what though?
the-
I think
I
as a teenager or a young adult back in that time period, it was so with the culture at the time. I think that's what.
Well,
what
it's
was
very.
his
It's
drive.
one of the first films that's very almost meta in a sense that it's talking about the horror genre and to the people that are watching the horror genre. People in the film talk about horror movies because they've seen horror movies, so that's kind of cool. And the only one that I will vouch for, beyond a stretch of a doubt, as I will stick by the first one. It's an amazing young cast. A lot of those cats went on to do some really cool stuff. And so Rose McGowan, who I love, is in it. A lot of great people in that first one, and the first one truly works.
I didn't.
As the sequels came out, it got more and more authentic
Even beyond the sequels, I didn't like the effect that franchise had on horror
in general.
in general, because suddenly all of your protagonists had to be assholes at that point,
Yeah.
who had seen several horror movies in their life. I mean, I feel like horror movies are about the reason why you're supposed to experience fear is you're supposed to empathize with those characters, and those characters are supposed to be thrust into a situation where they're powerless.
Yeah.
Well, if you have a bunch of genre-savvy assholes, I have trouble empathizing with them, and I have trouble believing that they're powerless. So, in both cases, it just, you end up with a lot of... House of Wax comes to my mind. Not the original, the remake.
With
the guy...
Oh.
Hilton.
Yeah.
Paris
Paris
Hilton.
Hilton.
Yeah, that was a movie.
I'd only seen one of her other movies before then, and it was a lot better.
I think I know what you're talking
It was a
about
lot
there,
better.
buddy. I
She gave it
was
more believable.
You're talking about Repo the Genetic Opera, right?
anywho.
That movie is great. Watch Repo the
I would
Genetic
say
Opera.
with-
You mentioned being powerless. Well, I'll let you get your final thought out on
Yeah,
Scream.
with Scream, I think honestly it kind of opened the floodgates to another scary movie because that's kind of poking fun at that genre completely. They made so much fun of it, but that just seemed hip at the time. So that's kind of what I always remember Scream from, is another scary movie because they kind of influenced that.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Speaking
that's
of opening the floodgates and being powerless, that brings us to
Release
our
the
next.
Kraken.
That brings us to our next one, which I'm powerless not to give this a big endorsement, at least for the first one. The sequels, maybe we can get into. No other franchise has been rebooted, remade, and than this one, and that's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
yes.
Ooh.
You've got the first one, you've
Beautiful.
got the second one, you've got the third one, maybe a fourth one, but then you have 2 or 3 or maybe more basically redoings of the original. And I don't remember, some of them have names. There was one that was supposed to be like the origins. There's been so many. I think if you combined, there's at least 7 or 8 Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies.
And you got Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey in one
That
of them.
one, yeah, which is real bad. I remember that one.
But you know, guys, there's nothing like, I will say that one of my top horror movies will be the original.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. And when I was in Carolina with my buddy Bill from Veggie Macabre, do check out his Halloween Countdown if you have not yet. We talked about, I said to him, I think that might be, in my opinion, the all-time greatest horror film.
Because it was just so realistic.
One of the guys that's in the film, he plays the hitchhiker that picks them up and leads them there. He was a Vietnam vet in real life, and he had said, quoted, "I would rather go back to the war than be on the set of Texas Chainsaw Massacre again," because they filmed in 100-degree heat with rotting raw meat in this house, and they had the girl there who I believe passed away this year, R.I.P., screaming her guts out, you know, and like, it's just a terrifying film, man. The first time I saw it, I was a teenager. I shouldn't have been physically, you know, altered after seeing it. But after I saw my brother and some of his stoner friends down in our basement, I came upstairs and was literally shaking. I was like, wow, that is such an experience, man. I mean, that first one, to me, is gotta be in the top 3 or 5 all-time greatest horror films.
I love it because you don't need no CGI for it.
Hell
It
no.
was back in the 70s, whenever the decade it was. It's just so realistic.
And
It's
you
like,
feel
you know,
that heat. You smell the rotting
you're walking, you know, somewhere in a county in Texas, and you don't know where the hell you are. It's realism in your face. I mean,
And you're trapped there at the table. You know, it's not just like, oh, Freddy's gonna slash me and then I'm gonna be gone.
No,
you're sitting there eating your friends. Like, you're sitting there with a guy wearing another human's face. I mean, Leatherface.
Leatherface is, I mean, this is somewhat based off of a true story or legend.
Yeah, Ed
too,
Gein,
so
you know, sick freak.
Your mass murderers. I mean, you can't get much more realer than this. Like you say, Freddy,
Well,
Jason.
I mean, Ed Gein, you know,
Well, I
Texas
mean, it
Chainsaw
is
Massacre.
a little for Hollywood, but I mean,
Ed Gein was also the inspiration for Norman Bates in Psycho, and he was also the inspiration for Buffalo Bill.
I mean, he's
in
a sick
Silence of the
freak, and I mean, Texas, you know, a lot of sick people down there. There's a guy, Toby Marks, down there. It's a real sick
No
guy.
offense meant to
Toby,
anyone
Toby,
watching from
Toby.
Texas. We love your clicks too.
Love
You know, there's some real sycophants down there. Here's one that you guys might not be as familiar with. Last year, I believe, unless it was 2012. Recently, I saw all 5 of these. Wrong Turn.
no.
I've seen the first 2. The first one didn't leave much of an impression on me. It was just, to me, it was just another one of, you know, zombie-like
Jeepers
thing.
Creepers,
Yeah.
that sort of time period.
The second one, though, was just so stupid. I loved it. I loved every glorious minute of it.
The second one's really great.
Henry Rollins.
Henry Rollins is in that one.
Yeah.
They are a bit disturbing. Like, I mean, this kind of sort of a backwoodsy, you know, hillbilly family that's also mutated, you know, genetically. Yeah, so it's like Deliverance mixed with like X-Men, except they're terrible people who are going to basically rip out your intestines and use them as jump ropes. So
I'll check it out then, guys. Thanks
it's
for the,
it's one that I can't wholeheartedly recommend, but I also can't turn up my nose at. If you want to get down in the muck and play around, sometimes we do have that carnal desire. Up next is one our producer suggested, and that's The Exorcist.
I wish there was only one.
The first one, amazing. Second one, never saw it. Third one is good. Did it need to happen? Probably not. But the third one is even as a standalone film. I mean, that's the better way to look at it.
Yeah.
The third one's pretty good. They did a prequel.
They did 2 prequels. Well, okay, let me rephrase that.
That's right.
They started
Oh,
making
that's
one
right.
Prequel, and then the studio said your prequel sucks, you're scrapped. And then they made another prequel, which was the one that made it to the theaters. But they'd made enough of the other prequel that they were able to find some money and finish it. So now you can watch whichever one that's multiple choice, which one's canon, and
You can have your cake and eat it too. You can have your pea green soup and drink it too.
I don't know, guys. For me, that kind of franchise, that kind of, I guess, genre, like The Exorcism or Emily Rose, all those kind of different things, kind of all in one. I'm putting them all in one lump. Just doesn't do it for me. This whole religious, like the poltergeist is inside your.
Now, okay, let me ask: how religious were you growing up in your family?
I was raised Catholic. We went to Catholic school, but Catholic schools are different in England. I mean,
Can you get
honestly.
the pastor on speed dial? We're gonna do a live exorcism. It's. For
I'm sorry.
Katie.
I repent, Jesus.
It's for
I'm
Katie
sorry.
from Cheap Thrills.
Baby Jesus, I'm sorry.
Well, I feel like the strength
It's
of
weird
the
because my
Exorcist.
pastor does have Cheap Thrills bookmarked. Now I don't know if it's our site or something else, but I saw it
crap.
on his browser.
Producer Adam, we need to move now. Pack your bags.
I feel like, to me, I feel the real thrill of The Exorcist is if you did come from a very religious background,
No.
this is stuff that was in your religious text, so you could, is in the back of your mind going, ooh,
No.
could this happen
No,
to me?
I'm Irish Catholic, guys, and I'm sorry. It just doesn't do it for me. So
Yeah, now,
I'm
My
not
mom
scary.
was of age at the time when it was in theaters as a teenage girl, and she said that it terrified her, like, brutally. Like, she could not sleep that night. Like, you know, so at the time, especially because now we're a little bit more desensitized because all the weird shit that we've seen.
Yeah.
That's the stuff I like.
my sports of choice was Mutant League football, you know, as a
Heck
kid.
yeah.
Where you're
I had
throwing
Mutant League
around
hockey.
heads.
That was cool.
And so, okay, before we get to the final five, I'm going to mention three that I thought of as we were talking that you guys
Okay.
don't know about, and we don't really need to talk about any of these, and I haven't seen some of these, but Poltergeist, I believe there were a few of those.
I
And these are
love
just
the first one.
These are
Well,
just
okay,
ones. These are ones that I want to bring up in case these are ones that maybe people would have mentioned. How we not? The Omen. I think there's like 5
Yeah.
or more of those. Haven't seen any of the Omens. And in this one, there's only 2, but I just watched them this year, and I really want to recommend them to people. Waxworks.
Not even heard of
No.
that
So
one.
I'll just tell you very quickly, Waxworks, there's a wax museum. When they go there after hours, all the exhibits come to life. So suddenly you've got these kids, or teenagers, you know, well, it's probably like 30-year-olds playing teenagers, but,
yeah.
and they're being chased by all the wax.
So it's the horror version of Night of the Museum.
Yes, and then, but actually, here's a cool thing. They did a sequel in the early 90s, and in the sequel, instead of doing just the random waxworks and some of the iconic horror monsters, they did movie monsters.
Oh,
So
nice.
you're seeing there's a scene.
That is
there's
genius.
So you're seeing a scene where there's a Godzilla. You know, you're seeing them interact with. I'm trying to think of some other examples.
Now, was it made by Universal? Were they able to use it?
No, no.
Okay.
I mean, but it retains that great late '80s, early '90s cheesy aura.
Okay.
Waxworks, I believe you can find it packaged maybe both together. But Waxworks, I'm recommending to everyone. Now it's time for the final five,
Well,
guys.
I want to back up just a little bit.
Okay.
I only saw the first of the Poltergeist movies, and it's funny because my initial reaction, and then I dialed it back down because I remember the first time I saw Poltergeist, I had come into it late watching it on television, and the parts of it that work in that movie, you know, the tree that kind of grabs that kid out of and tries to
TV
eat it.
set, man.
Yeah, the TV set, everything. It's like, this is awesome. I love this. And then I finally got it and watched the beginning because I'm expecting there to be this first act to it,
Yeah.
where you get to meet the characters and care about the characters, and it's not there. There isn't one. I thought I came in way later in the movie than I did, and so that is my big criticism of that movie. Is like there's so much like the scene though that all really sticks with me that I'm gonna try to steal in some way for a horror movie of my own someday is the scene where the guy looks in the mirror and he starts scratching his face and his face starts coming off and stuff like that.
Some
And it
body
was-
horror.
Yeah, that always stuck.
Which
with me.
Cabin Fever, like Outpatient Zero or something came out around the time we filmed this. So there's actually 4 Cabin Fevers if people
wow.
want to throw that into their queue. Guys, it's time
Oh god, that was disappointing.
Failure.
for the final 5.
Okay.
And we're just going to serve them up tasty like a Waffle House, slinging out some hash browns. Number 5 on the list, the George Romero trilogy. We're talking Night of the Living Dead. We're talking of Dawn of the Dead in the shopping mall, and we're talking about Day of the Dead underneath the ground.
But not The Walking Dead, the TV
Not The
show.
Walking Dead, or not.
But that's awesome though, guys. Check that out.
I mean, what do you guys? I mean, the iconic, the maestro of horror, George Romero. I mean.
He's a friend to independent filmmakers everywhere since Night of the Living Dead is royalty free, so you can have it playing in the back of your movie and not get sued. That's a great thing. But he was the first one to really go, let's make a statement with these
horror movies. Let's do something beyond just make something scary. Let's commentary on race and how it's being treated, at least in Night of the Living Dead. Because spoilers, the black guy survives, but then the police are like, oh, it's one more, bang.
Well,
Yeah,
Dawn of the
irony.
Dead, too. Dawn of the Dead was a lot about consumer culture. Are
Yeah.
these people that are walking around shopping at these malls, are they zombies? You know, and then some of his later films, too, he went into subtext and kind of, you know, things underneath the surface. And he did other films, like, he's done other films. He did, a buddy of mine, Eddie Michaels, he was really a big fan of a movie he did called Bruiser. But... You know, and then also, too, and I haven't seen some of these, but there's a bunch of sequels now that he's done to Night of the Living Dead. There's like, I think Land of the Dead. There's one that's sort of a found footage gimmick. I don't remember the names of a lot of these. So he has done films in the last decade or so too.
If you put Of the Dead at the end, it's probably gonna
Might be his. So, but I think those original 3 certainly are worth a look.
Yeah.
And I actually really enjoyed the remake of Night of the Living Dead that had Patricia Tallman in it. Although it did completely reverse the ending.
What about the remake 2 of Dawn of the Dead? That was not a bad film either. You know, I know at the time it had some pretty big backers, which is not always the case when it comes to horror reboots or remakes. Okay, guys, up next, and I think there's been, and Underworld doesn't get included in our list, but I think it's got 4 or 5. But Resident Evil. It was a video game, then it was a movie, then it was another movie, and then it was like 5, 6 other movies, including the last 2 or not 3 were in 3D in theaters.
Can I go ahead and start off this one?
I think you should. Because given Tim's face, I think I'm in his camp.
Yeah, whatever, guys. This is for the Resident Evil gamer fans. I mean, I grew up with the Resident Evil games. Those are phenomenal. When you're getting chased by a freaking 20-foot spider down a sewer and a huge gator, I mean, it don't get much better than that. And Nemesis, we cannot forget him.
You never went underneath a manhole cover in Hamilton, Ohio, I guess. You used to do it all the time.
I don't want to literally run into 20-foot spiders, but they might be smoking heroin or something. I think the soundtracks, honestly, in my opinion, are probably better than the movies. They got some awesome bands playing on there. If you're into kind of metal, check those soundtracks out. I mean, the first one was not bad. I think the second one kind of got a little bit better.
Can I ask you this?
Honestly, I think it got a little better. So.
Can I ask you this? Because I think I've seen them all at this point, including seeing one of the more recent ones on the big screen in 3D, and it was so dark. I had no idea what was happening. I didn't know what I saw, but it's a franchise. It's all these films are allegedly all part of a big story. Can you make any sense of because I don't know what I don't know if it jumps around in terms of continuity, if some stuff happens before others. I know there was one film that was predominantly like they were kind of like in a scaled off area where basically there was large fences up and there was like zombies everywhere. There's been so many, and I just can't keep track of it.
What I would say, Brian, in my defense is forget the movies, stick with the video games. I mean, if it's on Netflix or if you got a free movie pass, go check it out.
I mean, Billy Jovovich, I'll watch her.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice eye candy if you're into that.
I feel like the subtext is Resident Evil, check out my hot wife, because that is the director's wife.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, most of his other films are shite, so I mean,
I enjoyed, like, the first one. I didn't love it, but it entertained me. It was a cool enough zombie flick, and Michelle Rodriguez has to die because it seems to be in her contract that just I want her and Sean Bean and all these other. I just want the movie where they all
another one we can put in, guys. Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
I mean, that is technically
Into the World
one of them.
That is technically we could have
2 out of 3. I would argue 2 out of 3 because
But
World's End is also sort of horrible.
I mean,
And when we're
if
talking
Vince
about video
come up
game
with one.
adaptation, Silent Hill, the second Silent Hill film was shite. I gotta say too. Maybe it's the alcohol talking, but my true thoughts are coming out.
Last thing I want to say on Resident Evil, I only watched the first 2. First one.
That's all you need to watch, Tim.
And I hated the second one.
Well, I actually suggest the opposite, Kitty. I want Tim to marathon session out 3, 4, and 5 over the span, not of a weekend, but of a single night, and report back.
Okay, Tim.
Here's the question.
That's
At any point during the sequel movies, do you feel any level of... Are you ever worried that... I just blanked on her name, and we just said it. The main character is white.
Oh, shoot. Mila. Oh, no,
Yes.
not Mila. Yeah.
Are you ever concerned for her safety? Because I felt like by number 2, she was Superwoman, she was untouchable, and anytime she was on screen, I'm going, they're going to live.
It's Hollywood, baby. Come on now.
Yes, but you have to tease me at least a little bit. I mean, I know most likely...
Tim, I have a 6-pack of these bad boys in the fridge. It's probably not going to be enough to even get through the first one, but have fun, buddy.
It's time for the final 3, and up first, Friday the 13th. Now, I gotta tell you guys, obviously we all grew up with Jason Voorhees. It was around, I can actually know this specific year because I had moved back home for a year. 2007 it would have been. I moved back in with my parents, and to kill some of this extra time I now found myself with, since I didn't have my own place, I got from the library Crystal Lake to Manhattan, or whatever the name was, of the box set.
Yeah.
and I watched the entire thing over the span of a few nights, and I needed to, because there's some films from our past that we kind of like. A good example is recently Ghostbusters. I hadn't seen it since I was a small child. I didn't, and so I kind of felt like a poser all these years. And some of our past videos on other channels, wearing my Ghostbusters hoodie, because I hadn't seen it since I was a kid. I kind of felt the same way with a lot of the Friday the 13th films. So, yeah, I know I'm familiar with the franchise, but you really got to go back and see the work.
Yeah.
And so I went back and watched them all, and it really actually raised my level of respect.
Really?
Yeah. It really did.
I see several bright spots in them, but
I can't say it's uniformly the quality doesn't dip, and that's I couldn't argue that, but especially seeing some of the older ones, before it was straight on just slasher, the backstory with him and his mom and stuff. I like this franchise a lot. Maybe even more than one of the ones that we're going to talk to after the fact. But I'll let you guys talk about Jason for a little bit.
My buddy Brandon has a book. It's gigantic. It's production notes and stuff like that from like every single one of the Jason movies.
Yeah.
And this was actually a really, really fascinating read.
Yeah.
Because, each director they brought in did not intend to make shit. They wanted to put a new spin on Jason. They wanted to do new things. But pretty much every time the studio said, no, make exactly the same movie as last time, but about with a tenth less of the budget than was given to the last guy, because they found a way to print money. And the other thing that was kind of interesting is some film critics at the time. I can't remember. I think if it was, I don't want to go slandering like Leonard Maltin, but I can't remember which film critic it was. Not only did he hate the Friday the 13th movies, he felt that they were detrimental to society and to children, and on his show gave out the addresses of the filmmakers so that people could write hate mail or show up, with a handgun if they chose to or whatever.
Or severed hand in the mail.
Now, okay, as for the movies themselves, 1, never did anything for me. 2, never did anything for me. 3, Three was iconic in that that's when he got the mask. Never did anything for me. 4, my favorite of all the series. From there, I didn't see any of the others until Jason Takes Manhattan. It was stupid, but I enjoyed it. I loved Jason X. I loved Freddy vs. Jason.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm going to say Mama's Boy, Slasher, Revenge!
Ooh,
That's all I have to say.
One other thing. The NES game was vastly underrated. People are like, this game is awful. No, the game is unforgivably hard, but it's awesome.
Yeah. And I gotta also say, in closing with Friday the 13th and Jason Voorhees, the most common Halloween costume of our youth. Up next is one that I love a lot, and if, I had to say, there are some of these more obscure ones that kind of hold spaces, for me, like the Puppet Master and some of those other ones, but Nightmare on Elm Street. This one for me is probably my all-time favorite. If I gotta be honest, both nostalgia-wise, but also too just wanting to go back and revisit some of these films. Just in the past few months, I watched the 4.5-hour documentary, Never Sleep Again.
Okay.
Wow.
And you talked about the book with Friday the 13th. This is an amazing documentary. They get crucial people, cast and crew from each of the films. And that's one thing that you might not know, is that there's a different director for every single Nightmare on Elm Street film. Nobody returned. A lot of times these were young filmmakers that went on to do other stuff. The documentary is super in-depth, but it's never dull. You can watch it in chunks or in one marathon setting, but I strongly urge, if nothing else from this video, maybe that's a takeaway, is that you check out Never Sleep Again. But that even further, strengthened my love for it. The first film is iconic. The second one is interesting with its gay subtext. The third one's The Dream Warriors, which kicks a lot of ass. It's the fan favorite probably of them all.
I had issues with the ending, but overall I enjoyed that one.
Number 4, I think, was The Dream Master.
Hold on, it was... What was it? Dream Warriors, Dream Master, Dream Child?
Yeah,
like
5 is Dream Child. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
6 is The Final Nightmare or whatever.
Freddy's Dead, yeah.
Which I saw on the big screen.
Okay.
And I got the 3D glasses, and on one side it advertised, I believe it was House Party 2. And on the other side, but I had those for the longest time. And then
Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
New Nightmare. That's New Nightmare,
which actually was directed by Wes Craven. He came back in the New Nightmare, and it was interesting on the documentary that a lot of the people, including Robert Englund, really hold that one pretty, to heart. Oh yeah.
And Freddy vs. Jason. So, I mean, it's a really cool franchise, man. Freddy was such a great character.
Mm-hmm.
He was terrifying in the first one, then he became kind of this one-liner king. But such a iconic. When I think of horror, I think of the sweater, the fedora, the nails, the razor fingers.
The chalkboard.
I mean, yeah.
And then, okay, what was your thought on the remake then?
The remake, I would say, and this is kind of a damnation, but I would just say forgettable. I mean, at the time, there was some issues I had with it. There was some things that I liked. Overall, maybe it's a bit more of a departure than I would have chosen for the original, but I think ultimately it kind of, fell out of memory pretty quickly, and since then, until you just brought it up, it's been years since I've probably really thought of it.
Yeah. I very much enjoyed the first one, although the ending kind of left me puzzled a little bit how Nancy choosing not to believe in Freddy anymore would resurrect her friends who had already been killed, but then it turns out that's a dream too, so the ending left me a little puzzled. Second movie, I actually very much enjoyed. I thought it was a very interesting new direction to go. Third one, I liked the idea of trying to return to form or whatever, bring Nancy back and everything like that. The part that bugged me about that one, and bringing John Saxon back, loved him from Enter the Dragon and stuff like that, but I remember being very puzzled about the fake-out ending, because they had that moment where we beat Freddy, yay! And I'm sitting there going, what? No, you even within World, you shouldn't be that stupid, and then, surprise, he's not dead. So the Diabolus Ex Machina in that movie didn't work for me. After that, I couldn't tell you what happened in the rest of those movies, and I watched them. Yeah. I watched them in a very short period of time, and the funny thing is I've read that one of the things that motivated Wes Craven to make New Nightmare was he had a very similar experience. He went and decided he was going to marathon all the Freddy movies, and he was like, by the time he got to Freddy's Dead, he was like, I have no idea what is going on anymore, or what's going on, and use fail biology forever. He's the son of a thousand hookers, or no, not a thousand hookers, 1,000 rapists or whatever that had raped some nun or whatever. When I saw the remake, I'm just going to say, New Nightmare, excellent. Actually, it was the first Freddy movie I ever saw, believe it or not.
Oh, wow. Holy cow.
Yeah, I was young, and at the time I didn't watch horror movies because, young and religious and everything like that, but I eventually watched them all. But when the remake came out, I was very excited because the one criticism I've had of the Nightmare movies is I always felt like there was so much more that should have been done with the dream world. Kind of, what was the Nolan movie that just came out?
Inception?
Yeah, because it's like, there's so much you can do in dreams that I felt like it never reached the boiling point. Like, yes, here's a creepy man coming to get you, but shouldn't the world itself be rebelling against you? Shouldn't you be like, they kind of did a little bit in the first movie where Nancy's running up the stairs and the stairs are melting under her, but I wanted more of that.
I like that stuff a lot.
And I understand that it was a budgetary restraints and stuff like that, but I was thinking, modern times, we've got, all this wonderful CG to work with. If you employ it correctly, you could make an absolutely nightmare-fueled movie.
Yeah.
What we got was kind of It was okay. It was almost a beat-for-beat remake of the first one, but not quite as good, so it was disappointing. I already said I loved Freddy vs. Jason. And I just want to say, Freddy vs. Ghostbusters, the fan film, is awesome. Go watch it if you haven't watched it.
Is it available on YouTube? Or?
I believe so. If not, BraxtonFilm.com has it.
A cool takeaway from the documentary is some of those practical effects, especially in the early films, how they pulled some of that stuff off, like the upside down bed. You will be amazed at some of the stories and how dangerous and because that was all practical. It wasn't CG. I think it's also too, you got to talk about the memorabilia and how big that was. I remember having a Freddy Krueger yo-yo as a child.
Also had the NES game for that one too. It was fun.
And I remember actually really bugging my mom. I had an issue of Fangoria magazine that was promoting the fifth film and trying to get her to take me, and she was grossed out at the idea of this baby child. And so she didn't take me. I didn't win that battle, but I was able to get her to take me and my brother to see Freddy's Dead.
Okay.
So I kind of, I lost the battle but won the war. Katie, any Freddy stuff before we move to the final one?
No, just as a casual fan. I mean, if you're looking for a cheap thrill, sorry, I had to get it in there.
Ba-da-ching.
I mean,
we're getting royalties every time.
Say that, man. The concept of it, though. I mean, it is realistic in the fact that what happens if you were to sleep and people do dream and have nightmares. I mean, sometimes you don't wake up from those nightmares in your dreams. I mean, just that premise there is like, well, it is a little scary because, well, you know, if you had some dude with, like, you know, 10-foot nails running after you, trying to kill you and dismember you, I mean, he's a very memorable guy.
Oh, absolutely.
To me, again, I'm not going to be totally scared out, but I mean, the concept is freaky. I mean, for its time, it has longevity, so I mean, I'd go check it out.
The first one you could pop in, especially this type of weather. It's cool out here.
It has legs. It's
you
a
throw
classic.
you throw that first one in any time in this season, and it's a hit, man. At a party, people will come to the TV and see it again and again.
Hell, people still dress up as Freddy, you know. So I mean, he's an icon. So he's a dog man.
I want you to kick us off with our final franchise. Can you guys guess it at home?
I don't know. Producer Adam, can you guess it? I
Halloween.
think he does. Oh man, that's my boy's favorite. Hint, hint. They have, I believe, a huge Blu-ray box set of every single Halloween coming out.
Blu-ray,
An iteration of it.
Yeah, every single possible thing that you can think of to do with Halloween in a box set on Blu-ray coming out very shortly. And I know producer Adam has hinted that Santa Claus would like to bring it to him.
Wow.
I
can't think of a better Christmas season than curling up with Revenge of Michael Myers.
Believe you me, it's really funny because I'd never watched Halloween until I'd met my husband.
Oh, he popped in Season of the Witch, and it was just like magic.
I've never seen Halloween so many blasted times in the last 5 years of my life. It's like a tradition. As soon as August hits,
it's playing. I can't remember if it's at AMC or if it's at Showcase locally, but it's playing.
I've never seen it in theaters.
It's playing on a Friday night in
cool.
October. We'll have to look it up, but
I mean,
there is an opportunity to see it. I think there's 2 screenings.
I mean, just to me, Halloween, yes, I've seen it a million billion times, but to me, I'll still watch it because it's Americana. It starts off as classic Americana, and you watch these characters run from their lives from this sadistic, crazy bastard who's out for revenge.
The first film, there's never been a horror film that's felt more like my neighborhood where I grew up than the first film. You know, Haddonfield, Illinois is what the setting is, and those long kind of tracking shots of Jamie Lee Curtis and her schoolmates walking home after school, and these tree-lined streets of suburbia. I mean, it could have been my neighborhood circa early 80s. And so that was the first time that I saw it, I really connected me to it, is because I could jump right into that world and kind of, experience it that way. Now, when I was younger, I know I've seen most of the sequels, if not all of them, but I don't remember a lot about, I joke around Season of the Witch. That one kind of stands out because it's, it kind of broke tradition and went away from Michael Myers. I remember seeing Halloween H2O with Busta Rhymes doing a karate kick.
No, that was Resurrection.
Resurrection. Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry, H2O was a good movie. Resurrection was
And I actually saw both in the theater. But yeah, so Resurrection, where it was kind of a reality show going into the.
You know what, fellas? So I can't. It's weird. I like the first one, but I kind of like the last few that they've made. I don't know why.
I feel like I do need to go back and You mentioned the Blu-rays, and my library had a few. Like, I know they had 4 and 5, and I went the other day to add them to my list, and both copies of each had been stolen.
Wow.
So people,
let me know. We can hook you up.
Cool, but I would like to kind of see some of the later sequels, just to kind of refresh, myself. But as a character, Michael Myers certainly neck and neck with the big dogs.
I think what makes Michael Myers work is the combination of the mask, because it's not an angry mask, it's not a happy mask, it's just blank. It's Captain Kirk's face.
Yeah.
But you can just read. You can read so much into that. You can see. It almost feels like he's emoting, even though he's not, or whatever. It's that and the music that those two elements combined, I think, are what make Michael work as well as he does.
To me, though, guys, and this is always my biggest thing with the horror genre, is the bastard never dies. You can throw a freaking missile at him, and the dude won't. Not even a limb will fall off. I'm like, come on, dude.
I want to know a couple things. One, when will Michael Myers go to outer space?
And that is the one franchise that hasn't happened yet.
He'll be out there with the critters. They'll be up there.
I want to see that on my 2016 release schedule. And my second thing I want to know is Tim.
Yep.
Rob Zombie did 2 Halloween films. I know you can probably talk about this at length, but due to brevity, I know we've ran long. Should people watch those if they like Halloween movies, or should they just skip them outright?
The first Rob Zombie Halloween movie, I recommend going into it and say, this is a slasher movie. This is not Michael Myers. This is someone else. Watch it. If you go with that in mind, I think you can enjoy it. If you go, this is a Michael Myers movie, you'll be going, the fuck? This is wrong.
Me all the time.
As for the second one, the first one just went off course and it was bad. The second one to me went so far off course that it actually went back into the realm of good for me. Like, it is so stupid. I loved it. It felt like Halloween's greatest hits, because you have a little bit of 6 thrown in there with his origins. You have a little bit of 2 in there with the hospital scene. You have a little bit of 4 in there with, at the end, how she's, maybe the curse has been passed on to her. And it's just like, if it was in another movie, we're throwing it in this movie. Don't care if it contradicts our own continuity. Fuck it, it's going in.
Yeah.
I'm just going to give a quick rundown. Loved the first one. I actually liked the second one better, believe it or not. Because to me, as much as I loved the first one, it was an incomplete movie, because it didn't, he gets shot off the balcony and he gets up and leaves. The second one ends, spoilers.
No.
Okay, well, the second one had a definitive ending, and the idea was they wanted to do a Twilight Zone-like series, so the next one's going to have, they did the Season of the Witch, and they're going to do other Halloween curses from then on, but people didn't like the third one, so they brought Michael back. And
Bring Michael back.
it's funny because you talk about seeing various movies, because at the time I got into Halloween, H2O was in theaters. So I find the first 2, those are easy to find. Couldn't find 4 to save my life. When I finished, because I always wanted to know, how did they explain how Michael survived the end of number 2? And he's not in 3, so no reason to watch that one, although it's not an awful movie, to be honest. And I have to spoil it. The end of the second one is, Donald Pleasance lights the match and the hospital explodes.
Yeah.
You see Michael come out. He's in a big ball of fire and then collapses. How are they going to explain how he lived? Well, they just have a little conversation. It's like, yeah, there was a fire, nearly killed both of them. And I'm just like, wait. Not only did Michael live, Donald Pleasance lived, who's not anything more than
They
mortal.
got a nice tan. Come on now, tan.
Yeah. And then, at the end of that movie, they shoot him to death. At the end of the next movie, they hit him with a board or something like that. And I'm saying, come on, guys. So those were quickly going off the rails there. H2O I very much enjoyed, although it's one of those, that series kept getting rebooted-ish, because the back of the box says, forget 3, 4, 5, and 6. They didn't happen. But the opening credits includes little newspaper clippings that make references to the things that happened in those previous movies. Now, if you believe that, those movies happened in that universe, and then number 4, that is Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter, and you believe that Jamie Lee Curtis faked her death, then you have to believe Jamie Lee Curtis is a terrible person, because she left her daughter to die and skip town to get married to someone else and have another kid. And I'm jumping over 6, which has multiple versions. I like both versions. I would have preferred the producer's cut over the theatrical cut. So that's all I'm going to say.
I'm going to sum it up in my own words. I mean, go into it with low expectations if you've never seen it. I did. The first one's great for what it is. Like Brian says, it's just like your own neighborhood. I mean, it really is. Kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Not that we live, somewhere in, Southern Texas or whatever, but, I mean, the theme music's awesome. The character is indestructible. Michael's got balls, man. He's got legs. But just go in there. It's fun. You'll have your highs, you'll have your lows. But, I mean, on a Halloween, there's nothing like putting in Halloween. So just go for it. You might like it, you might not, but you're never going to know unless you try it, so.
All right, I think we're running on an hour here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We covered over 25 different franchises, a lot of films discussed. Hopefully you were entertained, but also hopefully you found some films that maybe you were unfamiliar with, or just that you want to revisit through our list. Happy watching, guys. Hope you enjoy your horror films.
We need refills, man. We're
whoops.
We're really out. Sorry,
We're
man.
gonna go.
We're out here.
We're gonna go watch some horror films.
Cheers. Sorry,
Yeah.
Brian.